Right, let's go. Introduce us, Alex.
Right, okay. Welcome to episode 5 of the Nameless podcast. Has anybody come up with any ideas yet, Dave?
Quite a few. I don't think any well beaters yet.
Oh, okay. On this episode, we're going to talk about the pomp and pageantry of the King's coronation on Saturday, and anything relevant to the royal family. So, Dave, where do we start? What's your thoughts on the coronation happening this weekend, King Charles III?
Colossal waste of money. Massive waste of money. There's poor people all over the country. We're having a massive financial crisis in the country, aren't we? Inflation is up 19%. 19%. Right? Look how much everybody's food bill's gone up. Look how much everybody's gas bill's gone up and things like that. And they're going to fuck about and waste a load of fucking money putting a really fucking expensive hat that could be sold at auction and the money could have good stuff done with it. They're going to put the very expensive hat on a prick who is apparently then going to be in charge, but who is going to do 7/10 of fuck all important, right? And that's all going to cost the country between 50 and 100 million pounds. You tell me if that makes sense.
Yeah, I've had a look on a couple of news clips, and the estimated cost will be 100 million. Um, I'm kind of torn between two places really, because I'm a bit of a small C conservative. I like tradition, and I like the fact that over the years, obviously, Britain has been ruled by a monarch, and it's sort of solidified this sort of British attitude towards the world, and whether people think that's right or wrong, given the history of the empire, then that's up to them to decide. But from our point of view, it kind of rallies the nation a little bit. The thing I don't like is the fact that we don't know what the monarchy do anymore. We don't know where they get involved, what decisions, what role do they play in the running of the country. I mean, there's three ways of looking at it, and I've just jotted these down. There's kind of the metaphysical level, the macro level, and a micro level. The metaphysical level is how the country sees the monarchy. Does it unite it? Is it a way of keeping tradition alive in Britain? Before,
Can I interrupt a sec, because I did see some statistics, and I think those around some 30% of people kind of weren't too bothered. 20% of people outright couldn't give a fuck, and the rest must have been in favour. So I don't know if that poll helps with you're saying bringing people together. I think it's reasonably divisive, potentially. But go on, sorry for interrupting there.
well, I can guarantee there'll be a political aspect to that, because generally people on the left don't give a monkeys about the monarchy. I mean, you only have to look at communism and things like that, where they rid the country. Like if you look at the Soviet Union, obviously they overthrew the monarchy there, didn't they? The Tsar, and they shot them. They shot the Tsar, the Tsarina, and the kids, didn't they? And you look at that, and it's like, well, okay, so you get rid of that focal point of the country. Was the country any better off afterwards? The answer was no.
No.
If we got rid of this, if we got rid of our monarchy, would the country be any better off afterwards? Well, we don't know, do we? But history would tell us not. I mean, in America, obviously they overthrew the British government, but there wasn't a king or a queen actually over there, was there? But
I think it's a long time ago when monarchs actually did something. But all I was doing is just go on visits to fucking foreign countries or go and stay in their house at Balmoral. They just fuck about on holiday all the time.
The figurehead
about tradition. I love tradition. I love uppies and downies because it's traditional. So all sorts of traditions. That was just a daft example. I love all sorts of traditions. I don't like the tradition of elite, privileged, entitled people having the best of everything, at such an unbelievable level, like the amount of money that's wasted on them, while poor people are always cold and hungry. And I know that maybe sounds a bit extreme in that, but I tell you what, I bet we all know somebody who's cold and hungry at some point this winter. They maybe didn't let on, because people are generally a bit proud, aren't they? But we'll all know people that were affected by being skint this winter, by being cold, by not wanting to put their eating on, by not having enough money for food and things like that, or not enough money for the food that they'll maybe like at Christmas and things like that. And that still is a factor, isn't it? It's like, it's a bare minimum for a nice life, that isn't it, really, a few perks at Christmas. But while all that goes on, the monarchy just sit there with all that money.
But I think to sort of counter the argument, I'm not pro or con the Royals. I'm kind of undecided at the moment. Obviously, I think Prince Charles or King Charles, through all his associations. Well, let's just have a look at his associations. So he's a member of the World Economic Forum, isn't he? He postulates about climate control whilst him and his family fly around the world in private jets. Okay.
And that's typically royal thing, isn't it? That, you know, that's typical royal family, that, to me.
Yeah. If we're going to talk about, you know, motorcades and things like that, when he has his royal visits, it's the same as any president or any prime minister visiting a country. The security and that involved, obviously, it's kind of a slap in the face to everybody that they're trying to lay a carbon tax upon. What else have you got? You've got the Princess Diana episode. You know, you've got his war medal. Go on, sorry, what?
Well, the royal family had Princess Diana killed. Is that what we're saying? Yeah. So there's young people that might not know that. But this,
yeah.
Princess Diana killed. That's what everybody thinks, isn't
it? There's the war medal decorations on his uniform. What war was he involved in to get decorated? It's a slap in the face, isn't it, to veterans that are on the street? What else have we got? His links to Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, there you go.
Here we go.
Fucking links. The royal links to nonsense. They were dealing with Jimmy Savile, and that probably wasn't the only one that was dead friendly with them. Then you've got Prince Andrew, who's obviously a raging nonce, isn't he? Too much entitlement, too much money, too much power for all and forever.
So there is some strange coincidences, isn't there, that make you kind of go, right, okay, well, do these guys deserve our sort of our worship? And that's essentially what it is, because I wanted to touch on something else. So on Saturday, I think the now I don't know how this works, but they've asked the British common man to pledge an allegiance to him, to Charles, and it's almost cult-like. You know, like they do, like the pledge an allegiance to the American flag and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've asked the common man to pledge an allegiance to Charles, and it's like.
Will he be doing it?
Oh no, I won't be doing it, mate. I don't believe in that.
Okay, right, you won't. Now will anybody normal? Normal's going to do that.
But there are sort of devout royalists, aren't there? There is people who love the royal family.
Listen what all of their accents sound like, because they all sound like they'd be related to the royal family. But you don't tell you. None of them sound like coal miners, do they?
No. But yeah, so the royal family over the years, traditionally over the years, or kings and queens, they've always said that they've been ordained by the word of God, don't they? That's what their power has been. You know, when the peasants couldn't read or write, they were seen as the contact between them and God, and that was like the traditionally accepted norm. And it's like, but if you look in the Bible, I had a quick look and I thought about this, and I thought the Bible says in about 15 verses that you shouldn't worship any idols other than God Himself, and yet here we are. You know, they're trying to say that represent Christianity and all this, that, and the other, even though they didn't celebrate St. George's Day, as far as I'm aware, but they celebrated. Is it the Muslim celebration day of Eid or something like that? Eid.
Yeah, Eid.
and you're like, well, doesn't the Bible say we shouldn't worship false idols? And yet here you are trying to sort of promote Christianity, and your defense of that. It's a very convoluted system that we've got in place. So look, on the metaphysics level, you've got that sort of what it represents up here to the people and how it supposedly unites a country. Then you've got the macro level, where it's what influence does it have directly on politics? Does the king or queen of the country have any say, have any veto powers on certain laws? I don't know. I don't know if you know, mate.
No fucking idea.
No, I don't know. I don't know myself. I mean, years gone by.
Heard of the Queen doing out, did you? You never heard of her doing out like, oh, this has happened and the Queen's have to do this. You never hear that, do you? You hear the Prime Ministers and that and Chancellors and things like that doing things. You never hear the Queen doing anything. And I'm sure, well, apart from going on holiday, you hear about them visiting foreign countries. Oh, yeah, she's had an exhausting fortnight visiting the Bahamas. Fucking awful, wouldn't it? What a job.
It will have been hard work for her. She was fucking 90 odd. I mean, imagine having to go through the fucking makeup and dress up every morning just to go out and shake the peasants' hands, mate. Imagine that.
Do you know what, though? Again, she wasn't in shell factories in war, was she? Was she? Never done a hard day's work.
So, the royal family, sort of 100 years ago, maybe before, before World War One began, Queen Victoria's favourite nephew was Kaiser Bill, and that's what kept the country at stalemate supposedly between England and Germany. There was always a bit of friction between England and Germany, and even the newspapers promoted it a little bit. They used to paint Germany as the Hun, and if they ever invaded, there'd be rapes and this, that, and the other. You know, it was a proper what do you call it, propaganda exercise. Then she died. Did she die in 1901, something like that? And then the successor, was it Edward the Seventh? He was really anti-German, so he started stoking the flames of the anti-German propaganda. And then his successor, George the Sixth? He was even worse, and essentially, World War broke out after Victoria died. Edward and then George kind of promoted it. So they must, and I don't know what powers they have now, but obviously back then it was a big thing that the royal family could sort of stem the tide of any potential war. Do you know what I mean? Whereas that doesn't seem to be the case nowadays. So you just wonder what powers they do have.
Just like a museum artifact. They all say all this stuff going on. They bring loads of money into the country. I went to Buckingham Palace, and I've never been a royalist. I honestly haven't. But I was in London, I was there on a course from work. I was on my Todd. So you fuck about and see the sights, don't you? I went and seen Buckingham Palace. I went and seen the Houses Apartment. I went and seen Big Ben. Yeah. I didn't see the Queen. I didn't go to Buckingham Palace thinking she was going to come and give us a wave, because she don't go to see the Queen or the King or any of the princes around. You just go and look at the house. Go and look at the soldiers with the big hats and the red jackets. You don't even need them in there. They should be living in a council house, because they don't work. So they should be living in a council house on benefits, because they don't work. Instead, they spend £100 million on them on one day, just on one day.
So what do you think then? We should just celebrate the relics.
Just honestly, just go right. He's having the coronation. Video it, half an hour job. If they want to bang it on telly, fair play. Don't need a big parade. Don't need all that security. They reckon that one of the reasons that the parade has been made much smaller is because they reckon there won't be as many folk out to cheer as there were like 983 years ago when the Queen was crowned. Because they reckon people just aren't as asked, and they reckon that they're making it shorter. They're going to go, oh yeah, we're doing it to save money. But really, it's because they reckon that not as many folk are going to go, because a lot of folk aren't asked, and they're a bit worried about that. You know, like sort of semi-empty streets.
Yeah.
Well, that would be poor propaganda, wouldn't it? because they need it to be like, oh, everybody fucking loves the new king. Get sweared in your oaths. That's what they wanted to be.
Yeah, you can definitely see it. I mean, obviously I think the Queen was fairly popular, wasn't she? I mean, I think it helped that she was female as well, and the fact that she was probably seen as more accessible than Charles being the son of the Queen, and then coming to power like he has done. But yeah, I don't know. Like I say, it is a hallmark of Great Britain. I think the monarchy and everything that falls out of it. And I'm still of the opinion: would we be in a better place if we just discarded it? I don't know. It would remain to be seen, wouldn't it? I don't know. So, metaphysical level, we've got what would be the focal point, what it sort of imbibes in people. We've got the macro level, what are the influences abroad in terms of power, at home in terms of politics, and then we've got the micro level, what is it that we don't see? So are they part of a larger conspiracy theory? Do they have the fingers in pies that we don't get told about? Is there something nefarious about them? Well, we've just touched on a couple of things there. Jimmy Savile and Jeffrey Epstein.
Right. You know, if you did that word association thing with me, if you said to me the word royal, I bet I would say nonce. That would be my first association. I swear to God. Because of the Savile thing, but mostly because of the Prince Andrew thing, my first word association to royal would be nonce. Because do you know what? You're not telling me that he's the only one that's ever been up to it. I might even, do you know what? If anybody's interested, leave a comment. We'll explore royal nonces in history. Just in the history of this country. We'll explore that for our next podcast. I'll actually do some research instead of just coming on and being a massive gobshite and letting Alex do all the hard work. I'll actually explore royal nonces and I'll come back with some cold, hard facts. If anybody is remotely interested, and if anyone has made it this far into the podcast, you win. You got the 2-minute mark, you're probably doing really well.
Well, look at this. I mean, this comes off David Icke, of course, doesn't it? But however much validity you can give to this, he said that Jimmy Savile acted as a go-between between Diana and Charles, almost like a marriage counsellor when they were on the verge of divorce.
He said about that in the Savile tree.
Now, even if you just disregard that comment, there's photographic evidence of him hanging around with the royal family. There's no disputing that. Now, imagine the security checks you have to go through if you were to go and get knighted by the Queen or the King. You have to go through, you have to go through checks if you teach children.
Yeah,
so they're serious checks, aren't they? If you've any suspicious background, you ain't getting that access, if you like, or the job or whatever the role. So you're not telling me that the special forces or the Secret Service couldn't do or didn't do their due diligence and research what he was up to prior to meeting the King or the Prince of Wales.
Yeah.
They all fucking knew about it. That's the big red herring, isn't it? So regardless if it's directly involved or just guilty by association, they've got some guilt and some questions to answer, haven't they?
Oh, 100%. But they'll never be answered, will they? And this is again, it's part of the reason why I dislike them. Part of the reason why I'd have shot at them. Because I don't think anybody should be in that sort of power.
And then you've got that other fucking idiot, Prince Andrew, who's associated with one of the biggest child sex traffickers ever known. And he says he disowned him as a friend, but he only disowned him like a period of time after he was guilty the first time. So it wasn't he disowned him straight away once he found out. Only when he got caught. So yeah, there is some explaining to do, isn't there? So
be done. There's
no one will what?
Nobody will ever find out. It'll never come out into the realm of the public any of that, will it? I know some things do over time and that, but that won't. That'll never come out.
Mm. So that's it, isn't it? So are you for the coronation or not, Dave?
I tell you, do you know what? The missus loves it. Ailey loves it. She'll be watching it and that. I won't be. I won't be doing anything different. I'll be opening my gym as usual. Normal service will just march on and just grind as ever because I don't give a fuck about the coronation and I don't think many people in there do either. Me and you'll be in the gym, won't we? You'll be in the gym with me.
Yeah, in the gym, yeah.
There you go.
I think that's answered that. But I think you're right about the austerity. Food. So you were talking about inflation. Yeah, food prices gone up 20% in a year. It's just been published on the BBC website that BP have made a 4 billion profit since. I wonder if it's since the start of the new financial year. So that's since the start of April.
Unless it was maybe last year. That was maybe last year.
Oh yeah, well that was the financial year, wasn't it? So it's
yeah, up till yeah.
Let me just see if I can find it.
Yeah, hey, if Prince Charles is so fucking great, let him sort the gas bills out. Let's see what we can do about that. If kings have got a point, sort that out. Gas bills and food bills.
He won't be paying any money, will he?
He won't. He won't. He probably isn't aware that there's such a thing as a gas bill. He thinks it's all just for fucking free.
Well, it was on the front page of the BBC website, but it's no longer on there. Yeah. Anyway, so it was over some period of time, the new profit margin by BP is 4 billion, and yet
gas bills go up, and the government, and if the royal family have got any clout, them as well, just allow this to happen. They just allow it to happen. And really, they haven't got a reason why they say, yeah, we are letting BP and the other gas companies and oil companies fuck yous all to death and make yous all fucking skint. There isn't a reason why we're allowing it to happen. Because they could stop it. They're the fucking government, wouldn't they?
Well,
but they're just not.
he's an interesting point. So we think that obviously the royal family are typically British, but really the majority of the bloodline is German, isn't it? Saxe, Coburg, Gotha, and before that Hanover, or Danish or Germanic. Well, they're about as British as we can get at the moment, anyway. But do you know what nationality is the Prime Minister of England? He's Indian. What nationality is the Prime Minister of Scotland or the First Leader of Scotland? Pakistani.
Yeah.
What nationality is the leader of the Republic of Ireland? Indian. So my point was going to be, do we not need a British focal point in the times where we're being led by foreign leaders? And then people might say, oh well, they've been in the country, or they were born and raised in the country, or whatever, but they're of Indian heritage and Pakistani heritage, and it's like, well, is that not a bit of a conflict of interest then?
That is a very interesting topic, Alexander, and I think it's one we should debate forever on another podcast. No, seriously, it is, isn't it? It's a very good topic. And again, if anybody's out there and they want to throw some comments about, chip in, say 2 pennyworth on this, tell us what wankers we are, and so insult us, tell us you disagree with us. Don't be shy, folks. Welcome a bit of discussion.
We've got to discuss it, haven't we? It's fucking, the stuff's happening, and
I think it's important that, well, again, we're trying to ask the questions that people that we know would ask, aren't we? I know what people say to me is that I say what a lot of the time they think, or we say what they think. and I'm sure a lot of people have the same questions as that.
Mm.
And like I said, but again, I think so. We've got 2 podcasts coming up, people. We've got one about the political government of the British Isles, and one about royal nonsense. I look forward to them.
I think we're still alive to tell those raw nonce ones.
Yeah. We'll be all right. Nobody watches it now.
Just put raw nonces in the title. I'll get watching.
Get us banned again. Right, on that happy note, thank you very much, people. We'll see you on the next one.
Splendid. All right, how do I stop this?